Good afternoon. Thank you for that introduction, Laszlo. For the last year, I've traveled the country talking about how cybersecurity was just a buzzword. It's the word that brings together all the processes and techniques for managing a network security. What we're really trying to do is risk management. But to understand risk, you have to look at vulnerability, threat, and consequences. And as we understand some of the threats against us, most people are unaware of one of the greatest. This place where crime and new exploits are developed called the dark web. The dark web sits deep in the deep web, and we'll talk more about this. But first, let's talk about this clear and present danger that we face. I don't know if there are too many people that would disagree with me that the frequency of exploits and breaches is increasing. Organizations and individuals are being targeted, and the processes that are being used sometimes involves real credentials. Hackers have learned how to evade current controls. And for all the time and practice and technique that we've put into developing intrusion systems that will help us defend our networks, they're rendered useless. The criminals are leveraging our innovations, and they're moving at a pace and speed that our security vendors just can't keep up with. And in many cases, they're waiting for new products. They're waiting for new techniques for managing networks because those same practices are leveraged to enhance new hacks. This is one of my favorite slides because it shows the role of the government relative to the Department of Justice, DHS, and the Department of Defense. The part that's my favorite is up in the top left corner. It's the date that this was agreed upon. It says March the 5th, 2013. Well, that's really only 4 years ago. And that should give you a great example of where we are in terms of government coordination, government industry coordination when it comes to cybersecurity and thwarting the threat against us. We're very young in this world. And in these types of situations, those that don't have to depend on acquisition approval, congressional mandates, budgets, they're always going to have the upper hand. And right now we face a battle where we're working against an adversary that are organizations, loosely coordinated networks, and lone wolf individuals who connect with each other, and they have no issue trusting and sharing information with each other. Just a year and a half ago, President Obama said that cybersecurity was one of the most serious economic and national security challenges we face. Presidents don't typically make statements like this unless it's very true or they are trying to inspire or change some approach to the way that we are carrying out our business across the nation. He also said neither government nor the private sector can defend the nation alone. It's going to have to be a shared mission. And what he was talking about is the idea that we're going to have to share information when we know about breaches, when we know about opportunities to thwart an adversary. We're going to have to share that information so that we're working as a team. Admiral Rogers, the head of the NSA, He said there shouldn't be any doubt in our mind that there are nation states and groups out there that have the capability to enter industrial control systems and shut down our grid and our other utilities. And the most telling thing is when he said, all of that lends me to believe it is only a matter of when, not if. And when the head of the NSA is also giving you a message that says that we are vulnerable, we should be listening. And at this point, I think we are listening. But there is a threat that brews that even these officials can't really do anything about. Let's talk about the internet. So the internet is, as we know, that global computer network. It allows us to do commerce. It allows us to share information and increase our productivity in a way that no other tool has ever in the history of this world. But did you know that only 4% of the internet is visible to the general public? Meaning that the remaining 96% is in this thing dubbed the deep web. Now, we often hear the word dark web, deep web. The dark web, by contrast, is very small, and it's a portion of the deep web. And in essence, there's a normal internet where we do everything, like check Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, and buy things from companies like Amazon. We can find these on something we call the ClearNet, the Googles, the Facebook, the Mozillas. The deep web, on the other hand, is a subset of the internet, and it cannot be indexed or found by search engines like Google. This includes all web pages that are behind member logins. All companies and organization web pages use internally and other data. The majority of the deep web does not have anything illegal on it. The deep web is the part of the internet that houses 90% plus of the web, yet it's completely tucked away from the easy access that we've come to expect from the internet. The dark web, on the other hand, is a smaller portion of these deep webs that only is accessible with special software like the Tor browser. And we'll talk about the Tor browser in a minute. So I mentioned the clear web or the ClearNet. This is the normal internet where you do everything, as I said, such as Gmail, Facebook, all these things that we've come to expect to be sitting there waiting for us when we wake up in the morning. It houses websites and web pages that we make for our businesses and for our organizations. But it's no less dangerous on your computer browsing these as hackers and people who are looking to steal from us use these pages, use these applications as opportunities to have access to us. It's no less dangerous to your computer because there are websites and exploits that are specifically set up to rob visitors and play their role in imposter scams and other activities. Now, the deep web, it's a subset of the internet and it cannot be indexed. That's the big difference. This includes web pages that are behind member logons, company and organization web pages used internally and other data. And again, I have to repeat that most of this is not illegal. The dark web, on the other hand, you can find hitmen, illegal drugs, recipes for cooking humans, credit card numbers illegally obtained, and information on stealing identities, and much, much more. The only way to access the dark web is by using a special browser like the Onion router, Tor, and often you may need a password. Tor is a seething matrix of encrypted websites that allows users to surf beneath the everyday internet. It has numerous layers and encryptions, and all of this lends itself to having an anonymous system. As we know, we typically will share files and browse websites in a way that can be tracked, not only by law enforcement, but we know advertisers can track our movement and track our activities. And so Tor allows for browsing and the use of the internet that gives us that anonymity that a lot of individuals seek. So you might say the road to the dark web is Tor. So why didn't the government do something about it? Well, mainly because the government actually is a funder of Tor. And you might ask, well, why would the government ever fund such a thing? Well, let's look at that. The Tor network is based on an onion routing design. Traffic is forwarded through several routers and encrypted, with each router removing one layer of the encryption. The path through the network, a tunnel, is constructed in a telescoping fashion so that each router knows only the previous and the next router in the path. A little more technically, the first entry router knows the source of the tunnel, but not its destination. And the last, the exit router, knows the destination, but not the source. And you'd have to understand that part of the way the U.S. does its business around the world is to help promote democracy. We work with dissidents in countries where the internet is monitored. We have activities across certain countries where we need to have access to our employees and our teammates that are working on our behalf. And so the Tor process or practice or technology has a great value to us. I have to say that it's often noted that the vast majority of Tor users are not necessarily accessing the dark web for any illegal purpose. Some use it to browse the surface web anonymously, and it's their right to do that. Tor is made by the Tor Project, a nonprofit based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. You can look them up online. So as we think about this basic ClearNet, our internet, this deep web, and this dark web, we start to think, how do we make this small dark web even smaller? How do we access this dark web so that we can minimize the threats? Well, it's not as easy as it sounds. First of all, when you go on the dark net, getting into various websites and having the trust to move about and to understand the people on the other end requires that they accept you. And so some of our law enforcement personnel and some of our private sector partners have worked really hard to gain that trust so that they can gain certain access. Some of the issues that we run across go back to the idea that we need legal frameworks in order to thwart criminal activity. Our system is built on legality. As a case study, in one of the biggest takedowns in dark web history, Silk Road was an online black market, and it was one of the first and the biggest platforms for selling illegal drugs online. October 2013, the FBI shut them down. They arrested who they thought was the founder and the person referred to as Dread Pirate Robert. But it didn't take long. Silk Road 2 came online, and it was run by people who were previously involved with the previous operation. One of the issues that emerged was whether the federal magistrate from an eastern district of Virginia had legal authority to issue warrants in this case. This is important because, as we know, the internet has no boundaries. And when these types of challenges come up, it slows our process for being able to run investigations and manage them to successful conviction. We know innovation comes first, then comes security, then comes law and practice. And as that sort of system evolves and it continues to function in that order, we're always going to be behind the curve. In another case, the government, somewhere in the 2015 timeframe, served a subpoena to Reddit. Reddit is a legal site. But the government went in and requested some personal data because in one of the Reddit chat rooms, they were discussing where you could go and do illegal deeds and find contraband in various marketplaces. But what happened was that request became public. And because that request is public, it stifles the communication. And in stifling that communication, it makes it much harder to investigate many of the activities that occur in the dark web. So we have a second conundrum here where our system, one that says that we go and serve subpoenas, actually works against us. In another case, the FBI used hacking tools to identify IP addresses of users that were accessing a hidden Tor child pornography site called Playpen. Within a month of being launched in 2014, Playpen had 60,000 member accounts. By 2015, there were 215,000 user accounts. They had 11,000 unique visitors per week. Any normal website on the internet would love to have those kind of numbers. So the FBI did an unprecedented thing. It seized the Playpen servers and transferred the information to FBI servers under a warrant issued by a federal magistrate. The FBI ran Playpen off their servers from February 20th to March the 4th of 2015, and they were able to access the computers of about 1,000 Playpen users during that time. It resulted in significant evidence to bring against 1,500 cases of people who were child pornographers and who were accessing Playpen. This tactic managed to capture only those who were accessing the child porn sites while leaving others who were using Tor untouched, which again goes to the value of Tor. So where do we go from here? We've got this system that creates anonymity. We've got a thing called the dark web where criminal activity is developed and new criminals are being trained on a daily basis, as well as a place that you can access all of the raw material you need to be a criminal and prey on those of us who access the regular internet and don't access the regular internet. What do we do? And what should the government be doing? As I discussed, there are challenges based on this system of justice that we have in place to protect all of our rights. But I think we're going to get a hold of this at some point. There's a site, Base Mafia, and it sits on the internet in the dark web. It's a place where you can go find snipers, hitmen, and people to commit murders, beat up people, and other types of crimes. But what we learned recently, due to the data that was exposed by Edward Snowden, that site may belong to the FBI. In those correspondence released by Edward Snowden, it appears as though that website is actually a honeypot-style operation, and that when people come to that site to obtain those types of services, our law enforcement now has access to them and can get them off of the street, and again, potentially save lives. So I'm going to bet on the good guys. I think that it is going to take us a while to reorganize our system so that we maintain our way of life and the rights that we all share. But a new set of rules obviously need to be put in place for the internet, specifically the dark web. With that, I'll prepare to take questions. Thank you for your time.